Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a horror thriller film. Scary stories to tell in the dark. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins on Halloween of 1968. The nondescript small farming town is alive with preparations for the harvest, Halloween, and the Vietnam War draft. Three young friends, Stella, Augie, and Chuck, go out that night. Stella is dressed as a witch, Augie is a clown, while Chuck is wearing a spider costume. Every year, Tommy, the school bully, and his friends steal the Halloween candies of other kids. That is why this year, Chuck came up with a plan to get back at him. The three friends wait on the side of a street, and sure enough, Tommy's car comes barreling down the road. One of the boys in the backseat leans out of the window and snatches their bag of candies. Chuck's sister is with them too, but Tommy and his friends quickly realize that the bag smells terrible and that they've been pranked. Chuck, Stella, and Augie pelt Tommy's car with eggs. Chuck then hurls a flaming ball of poop inside. Tommy gets freaked out and crashes his car into a neighbor's fence. He gets out with a baseball bat and chases the three friends. They stumble into a drive-in theater, and Stella chooses the car of Ramon to hide in. Ramon is a drifter who's new to town. At first, he orders the three friends to get out of his car, but Stella convinces him to let them hide there. Unfortunately, Tommy finds them and demands that they get out and face him. Ramon defends the three friends and tells Tommy to leave. Elated that they escaped Tommy, Stella invites Ramon to see the town's haunted house. It's a large rundown mansion that's been empty for years. The house was built by the Bellows family, one of the town founders. The group opens the door and steps inside the dark house. Stella tells Ramon that the Bellows had a daughter, Sarah, who they hid from the rest of the world. But not much is known about Sarah or why she was hidden. Kids from the town used to go to the house, but they couldn't see Sarah. She talked to the kids through the walls and told them many scary stories. However, kids started disappearing, so the townspeople blamed Sarah for that and demanded her head. But before people could get her, Sarah already killed herself someday. Since then, the house has become famous for being haunted by Sarah's ghost. After the story, Ramon finds a secret passageway hidden behind a shelf. He and Stella explore it and end up discovering Sarah's room. Meanwhile, Chuck hides in a closet to scare Augie. When he opens the closet, he sees an old woman wearing a veil sitting on a bed. The old woman turns to look at him, and he closes the closet door in surprise. Augie then opens the door a few seconds later, and the old woman is nowhere to be seen. Chuck and Augie look for Stella and Ramon and find them in Sarah's room. Stella finds Sarah's book of stories and is about to open it, but Chuck is spooked and says that the book is written with the blood of the dead children. The friends argue about whether or not they should open the book, and then the door to the room is closed by Tommy, who has followed the group to the house. Chuck's sister opens the door, intending to let them out, but Tommy pushes her inside and locks the door again. Spiders get into her hair, and she shrieks. The others try to open the door again, but Stella sits down in a corner and opens the book, asking Sarah to tell her a story. The door mysteriously opens, and the group walks out of the house. When they go outside, they see that Ramon's car was vandalized by Tommy. Stella offers him her couch in the basement of her house to sleep in for the night. Stella's father is already asleep, so she easily sneaks Ramon inside. Ramon reads her writing, and he advises her to leave the small town and go into the city, so she could be a successful writer. Stella tells him that she can't leave her father. Ramon accepts this and proceeds to go to the basement to sleep. Stella opens the book she found in the haunted house. A story about a scarecrow is already written in blood-red ink. She runs her thumb along the title and the ink smudges. Across town, drunken Tommy arrives home and gets berated by his mother for not delivering the eggs as she asked him to. He gets the eggs and trudges through the cornfield near his house and passes by a scarecrow that he hates. A few meters later, he passes by the scarecrow again. He looks at its mottled face, confused, but he decides that maybe he's just too drunk and walks on again. But eventually, he sees the scarecrow again, or more specifically, the empty wooden post where the scarecrow once hung. Bewildered, Tommy walks around, trying to find it. Behind him, something skulks through the corn stalks. He swivels around, but doesn't see anything. When he turns, the scarecrow is in front of him. It begins to move, and Tommy tries to stab it with a pitchfork, but the scarecrow grabs the pitchfork and stabs him with it. Tommy manages to get out of the field and tries to call his mother for help. When it's too late, it starts to pour from his mouth, and he turns into a scarecrow. The next morning, Ramon gets his car checked in a local garage. The police chief stops by and informs him that Tommy has been missing since last night, and witnesses saw that he got into a fight with Ramon. The police chief also tells him to stick around in town for a few days. On the other hand, Stella excitedly tells her friends about the book and how the Scarecrow story seems like what happened to Tommy. Chuck also shares with the others his strange vision of the old woman back in the house, but Augie remains unconvinced that anything paranormal is happening. Eager to prove her theory correct, Stella and Ramon drop by Tommy's family's farm. They see a scarecrow hanging along the path, and it's wearing Tommy's clothes. Stella returns the book back to the room where she found it in the haunted house. That night, Ramon visits her again. They're in her room, and she notices that Ramon is reading Sarah's book. She tells him that she returned the book earlier, but he explains that he found it on her bookshelf. She opens it and is horrified that a new story is being written right before their eyes. Augie is in the story, and Stella hurriedly contacts him through a walkie-talkie. Augie is home alone, and he sees a pot of stew inside the fridge. He picks up the walkie-talkie, but doesn't believe Stella when she says that he is in the story. She tells him that there is a corpse coming after him, looking after her missing toe. Augie disregards this and eats a spoonful of the stew. He is surprised when he pulls out a toe from his mouth. Then he begins to hear the voice of the corpse, looking for her toe. He hides under his bed in his room, and the corpse opens his door. The corpse drags him and screams. Ramon and Stella arrive at Augie's house, but he is already gone. The two meet with Chuck and his sister the next morning. Stella believes that one by one, the book will write horror stories about them, and so they need to destroy the book. The sister doesn't believe it and storms out. They try to burn the book, but it remains intact. The three friends then decide to learn more about Sarah and find an end to the curse. They go to the local Gazette to look at newspaper archives. Chucky discovers from an old article that after Sarah died, her family blamed their maid and her daughter for teaching her black magic. Ramon then sees another article announcing that within a year of Sarah's death, every member of her family left the town under mysterious circumstances. Sarah's father's name strikes a bell to Stella, and she realizes that each of the family members is featured in the stories inside Sarah's book, which would explain why they were gone. Stella flips to a new page and sees that a new story is being written about Chuck's sister. The sister is performing in the school musical that night, and she is very concerned about the noticeable spider bite on her cheek. She goes to the restroom just before the curtain call and is horrified that the bite seems to be swelling. Ramon, Stella, and Chuck race to the school and try to find Chuck's sister. Something seems to be moving underneath the bite. A spider begins to come out, then another one and another one. Thousands of spiders emerge from her cheek, and the sister screams. The three find the sister surrounded by the spiders, and Chuck douses her with a bucket of water. An ambulance is called, and the sister is taken to the hospital. The next day, they track down the address of the maid's daughter, who is still alive but is blind. She tells them that she befriended Sarah and gave her the notebook so she can write stories. She also refutes the family's story that she and her maid mother taught Sarah black magic. Lastly, it is revealed that Sarah didn't kill herself inside the house, but in a hospital instead. They go to the hospital and ask to see Sarah's patient records. A nurse tells them that their request would take 6 weeks to be processed, so the teenagers decide to sneak into the red room where the records are kept. Chuck is scared to go inside the room because it reminds him of the dreams that he's been having about the old lady inside the red bedroom, so he stays behind while Ramon and Stella go inside. The pair find Sarah's records in the room. The papers reveal that Sarah's own brother had her admitted into the hospital and subjected her to various painful treatments. They also find a recording of Sarah during one of her sessions, and they play it with a gramophone. The brother was forcing her to admit that she killed the children, but Sarah was adamant that she was innocent. She also said that it was the mercury from her family's paper mill that poisoned the water and killed the children. Sarah's family covered everything up by blaming her for the deaths and having her committed to the hospital, so she could be silenced forever. The voice from the gramophone begins to tell a new story, this time about Chuck. Chuck is running through the hallway and the lights turn red. He screams for help, but no one else is around. From the other end of the hallway comes a big white blob with long, stringy hair. It begins to chase him. No matter where he runs, the blob is still there, slowly walking towards him. Then it hugs and absorbs Chuck until he is gone. The two get arrested for trespassing, and the police chief reveals that Ramon is actually a draft dodger, which is why he ran away. Stella and Ramon try to explain that Sarah's book is causing their friends to disappear, but the police chief doesn't believe their smelly bullshit and throws them into a smelly cell for the night. Ramon and Stella huddle as close as they could through the cell bars. Ramon confides that ever since he saw his brother's dead body shipped from Vietnam, he couldn't bring himself to do his duty and fight. The police chief sits down at his desk and opens Sarah's book. A new story is being written, and the lights in the station flicker off. A decapitated head rolls to the floor, followed by a hand and other limbs. The body parts begin to mesh together and form a towering monster. It knocks the police chief unconscious and then stalks toward Ramon's cell. Stella manages to get the keys from the police chief's belt and unlocks the cell doors. Ramon tells Stella to run and find a way to stop Sarah. He can't go with her because the monster is following him. He gets into a police car and drives away while Stella races to the haunted house. Ramon is chased by the monster until he pins it into a truck. Stella gets to the house and tries to speak to Sarah's ghost. Suddenly, she is back in the past and the house is no longer dilapidated. People are looking for her and she runs through the house. Ramon gets to the house too, but Stella isn't there. He picks up the discarded book and sees that a story featuring Stella is being written. The monster follows him to the house and Ramon hides. Meanwhile, Stella goes to a bedroom and sees the old woman that Chuck encountered in his vision. Stella looks into a mirror and sees Sarah's reflection instead of her own. Now we know that Stella must be living a part of Sarah's past and experiencing what happened to her. The maid's daughter comes in and helps Stella hide, but Sarah's brothers find her and drag her to Sarah's hidden room. The room goes dark, and she is the present once again. She comes face to face with Sarah's ghost, and she cowers in fear. Ramon is still being stalked by the monster and whispers to Stella that she should tell Sarah the truth. So Stella tells Sarah that what her family did to her was terrible, and she promises to write the true story of what happened to Sarah. The ghost gives her a pen, so Stella uses her blood to write Sarah's story. Appeased that justice to her has been served, Sarah stops her curse, and the monster disappears in an instant. Ramon and Stella find each other and they hug. She submits her story about Sarah and wins first place in a contest. After the incident, Ramon finally gets the courage to enlist in the war, and Stella says goodbye to him and hands him a letter. Her two friends, Chuck and Audie, are still gone, and Stella is determined to find a way to bring them back. The movie ends with Stella's father driving her and Chuck's sister out of town as they start a new adventure. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.